1/3 of Australia is a single state. It's like an ocean of land covering 2.5 million square kilometres, big enough to contain the state of Texas, Italy, Switzerland, New Zealand, Japan, Great Britain and Ireland, and have room to spare. Within its boundaries are some of the most unique sights on Earth. This is the wonder of Western Australia. The beauty, the savagery, the adventure, the grandeur. One of the rarest animals in the world is the hair seal. Only 600 have survived in Western Australia. Sadly, many pups are trampled to death by the great bulls as they lumber down to the water. These animals can weigh twice as much as a man. Feeding morning and evening, the colony spends most of the day by the water's edge, just relaxing. During her lifetime, a female can have 3 or 4 pups, and nothing is quite so appealing as a baby seal asking for food. On the move, they look as though their trousers have been made too long. But however gentle and comic they appear, they are wild animals and must be treated with respect. Unseen by us, the mother of this youngster became disturbed as we were filming, and her teeth left a permanent scar on the leg of one of the crew. When the seals enter the water, a miraculous change takes place. Gone is the clown-like waddle and the long trousers. Instead, a swift and graceful animal designed to hunt the darting fish, the slippery octopus, and spiny rock lobster. The seal is a relative of the bear and the dog, and although completely at home under the water, has to come up for air frequently. There is a lot to fascinate the young seals in the waters around Western Australia. Strange animals that look like flowers grow among the coral. The feather duster worm hangs its food-gathering equipment out on show, only to pop in when a stranger passes by. Deeper down, the lion, or butterfly fish, hangs in the still water. Far more dangerous than a sea snake, it is one of the most deadly creatures in the sea. In spite of its beauty, it is full of poison and can kill a man with one jab from its 13 sharp spines. This bald-chinned groper works busily in the sand, searching for food. Carefully fanning it into a cloud, he huffs and puffs, filtering with his mouth for worms and small creatures. Just below the surface, the coral forest is shining in the sun. But in nature, where there is beauty, there is often the beast. A 6-meter shark caught near the seal colony still had the remains of 2 seals and 7 dolphins inside. Along Western Australia's own barrier reef at Ningaloo, which stretches for 150 kilometres above Carnarvon, millions of fish have made their home. A shoal of thousands of silver drummer move as though by an unspoken command. And wherever the fishing is easy, you will find sharks. Carefully avoided by most fish, this beautifully designed feeding machine provides an ideal home for the remora. Nature has provided a special sucker plate on its head, which allows the remora to attach itself to larger fish and feed on scraps dropped from their jaws. At the moment between meals, it is on the lookout for another host. The white-tipped reef shark will, with luck, pass close enough to the remora to let it attach itself without attracting too much unwanted attention. After a couple of unsuccessful attempts, contact is made and the strange relationship begins. If the shark should become excited or start an attack, the remora will simply detach and wait in the wings until the meal is finished. Then he will quietly cruise round, fastening and unfastening, picking up the crumbs. Although while hunting, sharks tend to cruise slowly, they are fast and powerful swimmers, capable of lightning movement. The power of the tail, the shark's means of propulsion, is enormous. With 2 flicks, this shark travels 50 meters. Slower, but even more spectacular, the giant stingray takes off like some alien spaceship from the ocean floor. He measures over 2 meters from wingtip to wingtip and literally flies through the water. As we are filming the ray, we notice hanging above us a norwest cod, and as he descends, are stunned by his size. In these waters, fish grow large, but this is the largest cod we have seen. We need a volunteer to demonstrate this, and at last one of the crew agrees to swim into the picture with him. Although the cod are known for their bad temper and could easily kill the unwary companion with one snap of his jaws. Using 1 million tons of TNT to create a dam on the Ord River, Lake Argyle was formed. As the years have passed, it has become a home for the rare and beautiful wildlife of the Kimberley area. The best view of the lake is just before dawn. Setting up our cameras on a remote island on the lake to capture the sunrise, we slowly became aware that we were entirely surrounded by spiders' webs. As the sun appeared over the rim of the mountains, we could see that, unlike any we had seen before, the webs were golden. We had found the home of the golden orb weaver spider, the only one in the world to produce golden thread. Even as we stood there, we had been noticed, and the gossamer-like threads began drifting towards us, ready to weave us into their kingdom. In the seclusion of the island, undisturbed, well over 500 spiders have toiled to complete this massive 30-metre-long structure. Surprisingly, only a tiny amount of it is used to catch anything. Most of it is for support and protection. In the dead trees on the shoreline, it collects crane flies, mosquitoes, midges, dragonflies, and even small birds. Always hanging upside down, they wait like fishermen with a hand line for the slightest vibration that tells them that they have caught a victim. Behind them, the carefully wrapped remains of previous meals. When the next generation hatch, they attach their fine golden thread to a twig or branch and launch themselves on the wind. By the side of the lake, drowned forests of trees now provide a home for large colonies of pied cormorants. The plentiful supply of food and ideal breeding conditions have resulted in a steady increase in the number of fledglings every year. From the safety of their own nests, the cormorants can fish in the warm waters of the lake. Too young to fish with their parents, these two fledglings sit patiently waiting to be fed. Covered with light, fluffy down, they're unable to fly, and when at last their parents encourage them to jump into the water, it will take them many hours to climb back into the nest. Although Lake Argyle occupies over 700 square kilometres, it is dwarfed by the size of the land around it, the Kimberley block. Thousands of years ago, the early Aborigines hunted in the area. With the arrival of the first white settlers, it was realized that this land would be ideal for raising cattle. But it was a hard land, and when the time came to muster the mobs of cattle on the stations, men and horses had to work for weeks in dangerous conditions. Galloping at full stretch in this spinifex country, after a wild and rangy scrub bull where the ant hills are hidden from view in the tall grass, often meant a serious accident for man and horse. Out here in the days before the flying doctor, even a broken leg could mean a long and painful death. Today, there is a different sort of danger involved.
And a good morning to you. Special hi to the fellas doing some mustering today. Looks like remaining fine. Here's a little number to get you into the air.
At first glance, the cowboys or ringers of today look very much like their predecessors, but instead of saddling up, they're cleaning windscreens and are planning a morning's muster with 2 helicopters, which would have taken men and horses over 5 days to complete. Instead of oats, it's avgas. Instead of the stock whip, the two-way radio. Sean Murphy and his pilots have built up $1 million business mustering the Kimberley cattle, but still manage to look very much the way their grandfathers did. The object of all this attention comes down for an early morning drink at the headwaters of the Christmas Creek, little suspecting that this morning will be just a bit different. Starting the muster several kilometres apart, pilots, Sean on the left flank and Peter on the right, slowly begin collecting the cattle. From 2s and 3s, the mob rapidly grows in number. The point of the exercise is to make the cattle go where you want. Their natural inclination is to run down the dry creek beds. They must in fact be pushed across them. It's also important that the muster is taken at a steady pace and the cattle are not exhausted, as they will have covered over 15 kilometres this morning. Over on the right flank, Peter has disturbed a mob of wild donkeys. Meanwhile, Sean's cow stands her ground and has to be encouraged on. The mob is now moving well, and the bulls have been joined by the cows and their calves. Some of the bigger bulls have not seen a human being for 10 years and are destined to become hamburgers for America. Peter has found a visitor from the Northern Territory, a giant water buffalo. Meanwhile, Sean has got himself into a bullfight with an angry young scrub bull who bravely charges the helicopter. Honor is satisfied, and the bull lives to fight another day. As the morning wears on, the conditions become more dangerous. The hot air now rising from the ground makes flying difficult. The cattle are becoming wiser and hide under trees and in the long spinifex grass. It requires every ounce of skill and concentration to continue the muster smoothly. In the last year, Sean Murphy has walked away from 3 crashes, but still flies as he rides a horse, with a delicate touch where needed. The little calf is moved on, and Sean searches for the next problem, skimming the trees which are only a hand's span away from his rotor blades. The cattle yard is in sight. It's nearly the end of the morning's work. They are walking calmly now and will enter the pens nearly as fresh as they started. Even with helicopters, Sean and his men still use the old ringer's trick of a flimsy Hessian screen to fool the cattle into believing it is a solid wall. They will walk quietly along it and on into the pens. In the north of Western Australia, the great flat land rolls on and on. Beneath this unpromising landscape, an almost endless supply of mineral wealth. Gold, silver, iron ore, nickel, alumina, tin, and diamonds. The scale of this country is so vast that it can hide even the greatest of wonders easily. Thousands of years ago, in the silence of space, a meteorite weighing hundreds of tons hurtled towards Earth. It struck with a tremendous explosion 120 kilometres from where the town of Halls Creek now stands. The impact blasted a crater 850 metres across, leaving a permanent reminder on the face of Western Australia. It was discovered on an aerial survey as recently as 1947, almost lost in the vast landscape. The sides of the crater tower 50 metres above the surrounding land. It is not until we film our helicopter flying along the rim that we realize how big the Wolf Creek crater really is. Many of the craters on the Moon were formed in a similar way. Although visited by a few tourists every year, this, the second largest meteorite crater on Earth, spends most of its time remote and deserted. Western Australia's loneliest landmark. Although it looks like a river, Lake Kununurra is part of the Ord River irrigation project. It can store 100,000 cubic metres of water in a length of 40 kilometres and lies 50 kilometres downstream from Lake Argyle. Among the melaleuca trees at the water's edge, a large colony of over 1 million fruit bats live. The noise and smell is incredible. Interestingly, the wings of the bats are formed on an identical bone structure to that of the human hand. Skillful flyers in the air, they can only crash land in the treetops, where they hang fanning themselves to keep cool in the subtropical heat of the day. To take off again, they gain airspeed by flapping until the hooks on their feet disengage. Many early settlers thought the fruit bat very good eating. The black-winged stilt feeds on tiny mollusks in the mud. While the crocodiles think about feeding on the black-winged stilt. A little egret checks out its territorial boundaries before returning to feed. Most spectacular of the Norwest birds, the huge jabiru stork stands over 1.5 meters in height. Flights of whistling ducks make shifting patterns in the sky. and the black and white crane soars in the thermals. Towards evening, the night heron sits quietly on the lookout for small frogs, while all around him they start their chorus. The darter, or snake bird, is one of the most unusual on the lagoons. Unlike other birds, it lacks the preen glands that supply oil to the feathers. The feathers become quickly saturated underwater, and the snake bird can swim much faster. Its unique neck can twist and turn to follow every move of the darting fish. Unable to fly when wet, it does spend a lot of time drying its feathers, and if disturbed, has to jump back into the water quickly. As night falls, the first patrols from the fruit bat colony take to the air. "3,500 kilometres to the south, the next morning, in the moment before sunrise, other frogs call in the wooded valleys of the southwest. Great forests of jarrah, karri, tuart and tinglewood stand wrapped in early morning mist. Gradually, as the first rays of the sun enter the valleys, the mist begins to evaporate, the chorus of the frogs dies away, and the birds start to call as the forest wakes up to another day. As the breeze stirs the millions of leaves, they make a sound like the murmuring of a great ocean. Once or twice a year, there comes a moment when the trees are illuminated by the first rays of the sun and a full moon hangs above them. In the undergrowth, the life of the forest continues. A carpet python, intent on climbing towards a bird's nest, raises itself vertically 1.5 meters into the air to climb to the next branch. Skillfully using twigs to balance, it strains every muscle and finally succeeds. If he's lucky, he'll be rewarded with a feed of eggs or even young chicks. A slow and infrequent eater, he will gorge himself and then sleep for days until his appetite returns. The python has a unique heat-sensing gland in his lip, which he uses to hunt the warm-blooded animals of the forest. He can locate them at night, silently approaching in the darkness. He then wraps his coils around them, crushing them to death. Below the python, on the forest floor, another hunter-killer, the tiger snake, prepares a trap for its quarry, a small mouse. Unaware, the mouse blunders round the corner. The snake strikes and misses. Incredibly, the mouse attacks the snake, biting its neck. The snake flings the mouse off and strikes and misses again. But the mouse makes a fatal error and returns to attack. The snake does not miss this time. The mouse lays dying. The entire drama has taken only seconds. Here it is again at full speed. The blue-tongued lizard, lover of logs and damp places. He feeds on ants, termites, and other small insects. It looks more like a prehistoric monster than a small lizard when filmed in close-up. Another unusual reptile living in the southwest forest is the giant skink, largest of his kind. He is extremely nervous and spends much of his time listening for strange noises. Although it has frightened the skink, the noise also attracts a mother's attention. This baby Joey, greatly daring, has left the pouch and is lost in the bracken. Usually silent, this is his call for help. The wild flowers and shrubs of the southwest provide a rich and varied diet for the animals. The mainland quokka feeds on a tasty morsel. The black-gloved wallaby, like an old lady at a tea party, eats daintily. Under the stands of wild hovea, the shyest of creatures, the tamar, whose keen ear picks up the faint noise of our camera. By now, the joey has been collected and is safely back in the pouch, although his troubles with the bracken are not yet over. The mob moves on into the forest, leaving the last careful scout to make sure they are not being followed. At last satisfied, he too disappears into the forest. Hot sand, blue sky, warm water. Western Australia has thousands of kilometres of beach, and many holidaymakers choose Shark Bay, near Carnarvon. The very name sounds sinister. Huge fins silently cut the water, and the unsuspecting victim may easily become a meal. But this fin belongs not to a shark, but to a far more friendly mammal, the dolphin. The wild dolphins of Monkey Maya have formed a special relationship with man. Free to come and go as they choose, generations of dolphins in this area daily swim into the beach. The head of a dolphin contains a sophisticated electronic guidance system. Beneath the bony structure of the skull lies a large, well-developed brain capable of sending out impulses directed through a lens and out via the melon-shaped transmitter at the front of the head, a device for beaming signals into the water in front of the dolphin. It has been discovered that dolphins are capable of interpreting these signals so accurately that they can detect the most minute difference in size and shape. These signals bounce off objects and return to the dolphin, being received along the lower jaw and passed up into the bony structure of the inner ear. There, the brain translates the information as the dolphin constantly evaluates shapes, distance, and time in relation to his surroundings. If you're lucky enough to meet a wild dolphin, don't pat his head. Remember what's in it. Another famous character at Monkey Maya is Ringer, a dog who loves dolphins. One in particular, Puck, is his friend. Ringer happily stands in the water for hours just to be with the dolphins, and they seem to enjoy his company. The dolphins of Monkey Maya first started coming in about 1965. One single dolphin appeared and helpfully herded shoals of yellowtail under the jetty for the fishermen to collect as bait. Since then, many families, or pods as they are called, have made friends with the visitors to Monkey Maya. Always trusting, some have been killed, so the Dolphin Welfare Foundation, a protection society, has been formed to look after them. Further south, down the coast at Yanchep Sun City, a boat from Atlantis Marine Park leaves on a search for a young female dolphin to add to the park's collection. The expedition is headed by Dr. Nick Gales, the resident veterinary officer. Because of the number of dolphin off the Western Australian coast, the park has easily been able to build up its stock. It's not long until the first pod is sighted. The chase takes place at 12 knots as the dolphin comes in on the bow to ride the pressure wave pushed out in front of the boat. The first to arrive are a mother and baby, but these are never taken. By suspending our cameras over the bow of the boat, we can record the dolphin's dance in the sunbeams. As it jumps from the water, we can almost hear it laugh. Suddenly, we have attracted a huge pod of over 30 individuals. The sea boils with them. They swim around the bows, breaking the surface with joyful leaps as they breathe. Has his eye on a particular young female far out. As she starts to come in, we notice that she is surfacing regularly to breathe. It is at that moment that Gales must slip the carefully bunched long net over her head. She will literally dive into it and lie quietly to be taken back. From today, this dolphin will enter into a special relationship with her trainer at Atlantis Marine Park. By putting our hydrophones into the water, we can pick up the signals she makes while locating objects. A series of deeper clicks seem to be the way in which the dolphins hunt and locate the rubber rings. Gradually, over a period of time, love and trust between trainer and dolphin grow until spectacular results can be achieved. Here, with the aid of a high-speed camera, we capture the beauty of the flight of the dolphins as the great fish hurls itself many meters into the air. The strength and determination to achieve this are one of the wonders of nature. There is one special place in Western Australia which has no parallel on Earth. It is known as the Pinnacles. Time, wind and water have created thousands of limestone monoliths like the remains of a long-lost civilization that has trapped its inhabitants within the stones themselves. Millions of tiny petrified root systems from a vanished forest. When the last daylight strikes the stones, they become mere shadows from the past or the future. Perhaps this is the place that truly captures the wonder of Western Australia.